I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next thing on the agenda is I will read a couple of announcements on some closed sessions. I previously announced out on this closed session on last Friday at a special session, but since many of you were not there, I'll do it again this morning. Okay, this is a result of a closed session held on July 21st. Was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, a conference with labor negotiator, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management, Service Employees International Union Local 1021, that's SEIU, and the DSA with no action taken. And then we had another closed session held on the afternoon of Friday, July 24th. That was a closed session held pursuant to Government Code 54957.6. This is also continuing conference with labor negotiator, human resources and risk management about issues concerning the SEIU and DSA, resulting in nothing to report. Okay. Turning our attention to the consent agenda, we have 6 items on the agenda this morning. These items, as you know, are often routine and non-controversial. However, anyone can, in the audience or on the board, can pull it off. So I would like to ask if anyone in the audience or on the board wishes to remove an item this morning.
All right, Mr. Chairman, could you please remove item 5?
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, any other requests for removing an item? We have another recognition on 6. Do you want to?
We should person in the room. Is she in the room?
The sheriff. What do you want to do, Dennis?
You want to pull 6?
Full 6.
All right. Okay, we will be talking about items 5 and 6 at length. However, Chair entertains a motion on 1, 2, 3, and 4.
I'll move. Second.
Okay, moved and seconded for approval of items 1 through 4. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. The motion passes unanimously. Okay, we have item 5, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Before you is a resolution honoring Sandy Pack, who has been an employee with the Public Health Department for 30 years, and we're here to honor her for her distinguished service. Sandy is planning on retiring as of Friday. She's been with us since 1979 when the health department was a total of 3 or 4 employees. 3. She has worked for 3 health officers. She has done us a tremendous amount of good public service, helping with children's health care, immunizations, well baby visits, clinic services. Sandy has always had a very calm demeanor and is a baker extraordinaire. And we have a resolution this morning that I'd love for the board to present to Sandy. We have members of the public health staff here today who also I'd like to acknowledge for the work that they do every day behind the scenes. You often don't see public health staff. They're here in numbers to support Sandy and wish her well as she spends some more time with her family and grandkids, and we will miss her sorely, but we thank you, Sandy, for everything that you've done, and we'll miss you. So,
okay, I would like to come forward and read this.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
A person with 30 years of service in this county, it's hard to condense all of those 30 years of the acknowledgments of the accomplishments on a neat national level, but I'm going to try to read this.
Okay.
All right. This is a resolution honoring Sandy Pack after 30 years of distinguished public service in public health. Whereas Sandra Lee Pack, we share a middle name. September 1989, Sandy earned the title of medical assistant as she supported newly established children's health programs known as the Child Health and Disability Prevention Program and the California Children's Services Program. And whereas Sandy always found time to advocate for her fellow employees as an active member of the Calaveras County Employee Association, CCEA, and delegate, bargaining team member, and chairperson of the Health Care Advisory Committee for the Service Employees International Union, SEIU. And whereas Sandy will always be remembered for her calm and easygoing demeanor and welcoming rapport with the public and her colleagues. And whereas Sandy is famous for her baking prowess, which has earned her the nickname of Baker Extraordinaire, and for which her individually designed birthday cakes and holiday treats for health department staff must be sorely missed during celebrations.
I've been told I have to continue doing it.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors, County of Calaveras, acknowledges, honors, and thanks Sandy Pack for her 30 years of dedication, public service at the Public Health Department, and be it further resolved that the Board wishes sense of health, happiness, and enjoyment with family and friends in the years ahead. This is passed and adopted by the undersigned on the 28th day of July, 2009. Very nicely signed by
we have now grown to 27, I think I counted yesterday. So a lot of changes, but I've enjoyed every single day. There wasn't a day that I got up that I didn't want to come to work. We've had some great people. Jeannie's one of the best, and of course most everybody else. Colleen couldn't be here today. She's out ill, but she's a great director, and it's been a real pleasure working for the county.
All right. I would like to, did we actually vote on approving that resolution?
Yes.
No, we didn't.
No, it was
We voted on
four,
1
then
through 4.
We need a
Oh,
motion.
so could we
Alright.
get the plaque back?
You have to try that.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much for your service. Okay. All right, we have the next item, item number 6. This is also a resolution recognizing Barbara Boyd for her 20 years of service with the Sheriff's Department. Sheriff Dano?
Thank you. Barbara Boyd joined our agency about 20 years ago as a cook in our jail facility. She later moved in as a correctional officer. She never lost her ability to cook or provide pastry for the. Been a real joy to have around there. She's always upbeat, willing to help, doing a great job, and I'd like to introduce her. She's hanging out there. Hey, we are going to have a luncheon for Barbara, and you will all be invited, and we know that Barbara's going to be a constant visitor around our place.
You know, Sheriff, the last time we recognized somebody in your department, all we had was sheets of paper. I know
Actually,
times are tough.
Mike just reminded me that we don't have this process down very well. We, actually, I looked at him and said, do we have the plaque? And he says, no, we don't have this process down very well, but it will be certainly provided to Barbara, and we will take care of that. Do you want to read the resolution, or the chair?
We can let the chair do that. I mean,
Okay.
We do,
hi, Barbara.
we do some things very, very well. We're lacking in this area.
We don't leave.
That's the problem.
Oh,
All right.
Barbara's been very gracious to me over the years.
Barbara has been
Thank you.
very gracious to everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Let me please come forward and shake your hand, Barbara.
With tears of all.
Here and all. All right, here we go. Board of Supervisors, Calaveras, County of Calaveras, we want to put forth this resolution recognizing Barbara Boyd for her 20 years of service to the Calaveras County Sheriff's Department. Whereas Barbara Boyd began her career in the Sheriff's Department on June 20th, 1989, as an extra hire cook for the Calaveras County Jail. On May 4th, 1991, Barbara had established herself as a full-time correctional officer. Her drive and dedication brought Barbara to the rank of corporal on August 2nd, 1997. After one full score of years, Barbara Boyd has, for many reasons, achieved much. Whereas Corporal Boyd soon developed into the correctional officer her peers counted on to do the job with great care and awareness. Being a leader meant sharing all the lessons she had been taught by colleagues as well as by inmates. Barbara made many friends and admirers during these 20 years. Her straightforwardness and humor are two of her most special qualities. Working behind those literally closed doors through countless holidays and shift changes required great flexibility and constancy. Barbara was there when it counted, and it counted every single day. Whereas Corporal Boyd has succeeded by realizing there are no unimportant details. Paperwork must be exact, tasks must be completed, and behavior must be acceptable. Barbara has succeeded in very challenging classrooms, teaching the basics to an ever-shifting population who arrive in every conceivable emotional state for every conceivable reason. Okay. How do you teach responsibility to people who struggle with fear, anger, and despair? Barbara taught the truth and tenderness that society demands, and as many boundaries must be honored. Okay, whereas correctional officers don't often make the news and do other law enforcement, as do other law enforcement personnel, theirs is a more hermetic, that's like a thermostat.
We have an English teacher in front of us.
Hermetic world with its own complexities, waxing pretty poetic. However, those who know what it takes to be a correctional officer would agree that Corporal Barbara Boyd is truly headlining worthy. As Barbara would say with her wide smile and laughter, it's all good and let's put this to bed. Did you say that? Now therefore it be resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the County of Calaveras that Barbara Boyd be honored for her 20 years of hard work and dedication to the County of Calaveras. And this is a motion by,
Maybe. I don't know. I don't want her to go, so I'm not. It's dying for a lack of a second.
I don't want to go either.
I move this resolution.
I second.
all right, it has been duly moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You can vote. The motion passes on 5-1. Going on with the agenda, this next section is public comments. As you know, public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person or 15 minutes per topic. Anyone can come forward and talk about anything that's on their mind here. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Baxter, and I decided to come down this morning because I felt that sometimes you must feel your job as supervisors is thankless. And I'm here to thank you for all the sacrifices you make for your family and in your personal life to run our county. And I'm also here on behalf of Jenny's Kitchen and Kids in Jenny's Kitchen to thank you for your continued support of public access television, where my cooking shows are aired, and hopefully they are inspirational and informative to our county residents. And with your permission, I'd like to approach the bench and give you all a slice of my organic carrot cake with a candied ginger cream cheese frosting. Thank you so much.
You got my vote.
Have
I will be allowed to approach the board.
I'll second that.
Have any of you had her rub?
That's the rub.
What's your favorite flavor, Marita? Never mind.
Well, thank you very much for being here this morning, Jenny.
And you're walking very well.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Russ doesn't use them.
Haven't you all ever gotten any of her bodacious rubs? They're sold locally at local grocery stores.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Jenny.
And last but not least, Supervisor Sweet Cheeks. And I'm really sorry I missed it.
Is there something you want to tell us?
He won the contest last Saturday for, well, why don't you tell them?
This is public comments period. This is, I won Best Wranglers competition at the American Cowboy Knights Chamber of Commerce.
That's
Saturday night. He looked the best in the chair, right?
That's because he was wearing a girdle.
Anyway, thank
And
you
I-
for all you do.
Thank you, Jenny.
Thanks,
And I
Jenny.
see Larry Cornish is out in the out in the audience. His wife won. What was it, Larry?
cutest cow.
Cutest cowgirl.
Okay. Chair entertains a motion that we take a coffee break. Jenny, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Thank you, Jenny.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Good morning, Mr. Baker.
Good morning, Terry Baker, and I'm here to talk about the ongoing problem we're having with the people of California versus Carolyn Redmond with the illegal commercial agricultural cock ranch operation that we've been trying to abate the noise for about 632 days now. And on this first page here, this is a letter from Mike Gillespie to the court, and they're asking for, this is the fourth rescheduling that Mike Gillespie did on defense for the people that he's prosecuting. And he's asking them to give him more time so the Redmonds can get their defense together. Now, this was supposed to be April 21st was the court date. This was written on April 8th, which is only 13 days before the court date, which isn't time enough to do this, so they filed it on March 8th. You know, we'll just give it 30 days. What the heck, you know? I don't know, and I feel like I hit pay dirt because I have Jeffrey Tuttle here, I have Sheriff Downham, I have Sergeant Murray, and I have all you guys. So I have questions, and I'm hoping you would let me have more than 5 minutes on my time, because this is something, a topic that needs to be done. It's not every day where I have people that can come up and explain what's going on here. So anyway, the next...
Mr. Baker, I'd like to respond to that. This is for
Okay, well, I'm going to...
your comments.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay,
Now, on the next page, this is a letter from Francine Bradley, one of the expert witnesses that Mike Gillespie rescheduled, and said the poultry barns were nicely done, and that, well, those are the barn, isn't that the barn you guys just are making him tear down? That might be perjury, I don't know, but it's not the truth. Now, the next thing is, this is a letter from Mary Moss. Gosh, maybe she can come up and answer this. Here she is asking Ken Churches if she can write a letter indicating that the Redmonds are following accepted farming practices. Well, I've asked Ken Churches to advise me on this matter and help me write such a letter. You know, this lady, Francine Bradley, gave them a list of things to do to make it work, and they have done nothing, and all we have had is people from this county sticking up for them, writing letters. I would like Jeffrey Tuttle to come up here and explain the letter from the district attorney saying that Mr. Redmond was found not guilty. And and I'd like to ask Sergeant Murray to come up here and ask why they won't go out and recite these people. They're clearly in violation. They've been in violation. Please, any of you, does anybody have an answer? Or I'd like to ask county council why he refuses to let them go out and cite these people. He must be taking the fifth.
I don't intend to respond to these questions, so, and I don't think anybody else in the,
Okay, well then I'll
in the
just
room
move on.
will be questioned on this today.
Here's my next. Okay, this here is from the bill. Now, I would like Robert Lawton to explain this. This is the county, Calaveras County Sheriff Department Animal Services Division on page 2, investigated an incident concerning the number of animals kept on this property. Okay. Sergeant Murray, it's all yours. Could you tell them that you never
Mr. Baker,
Yes, sir. My time up?
your time this morning
Okay, thank you
is...
very much. I appreciate it. Anything you guys can do to help, man, we appreciate that too.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Jeannie Middleton. Let's put that here. So I'm going to put my address, you know where I live. I could throw a lot of numbers at you, a lot of facts and figures. You have the same budget book that I have. Apparently, staff has been telling you what you want to hear for a long time. Well, this staff is not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you what I think you need to hear. The first thing I think you need to hear is that my bargaining unit, the new one, CCPSEA, Public Safety Unit, has been back and forth to the bargaining table 6 times now. Every single time, it's a different scenario, it's a different number. And I'm going to tell you right now, last night we voted, and we voted against the 10% ultimatum we were given, the most recent ultimatum. We voted against it, and I'm going to tell you why. We have no confidence. We have no confidence that the numbers aren't going to change tomorrow. We get no guarantees. We're asked to give up, but we're not getting any guarantees that we won't have to give up more. We've established that public safety is a priority. You've established public safety as a priority. We've already voted in one concession. And I'm not going to say that that concession last night wouldn't have passed. But nobody has any confidence in any of you right now. No employees do. Because the scenario is changing every single day. It's not weekly, it's not monthly anymore, it's every day. Now, I am asking you, I'm pleading with you, get a number and stick with it. Stop this merry-go-round. And I have a real hard time understanding how you can keep a library open and put it against law enforcement and cut from law enforcement. How can you do that? Close those libraries, turn the key, those books won't spoil. But there's not going to be any victims of tragedies, violent crime, or death going to the library. They're going to call us. Now, I'm emotional, yes I am. That's how I am. The ones that you that know me, you know that I mean what I say. I'm looking every one of you in the eye at the same time. But how can you do that? How can, if there's 500,000, you need 600,000. I just gave you 500. And you want to know where you can find the rest of it? Right over there at the road department. They got a 3.7 increase in their budget. The sheriff's department's taken a 17.5 decrease. I don't need a calculator to do that math. And neither do you. Now you need to take a stand. I'm sorry, there's been a spending problem, there's been a savings problem, a reserve problem, whatever problem we've had needs to stop here now. That's why we're at zero contingency. And one of these days when you're out in your districts taking your little field trips, I want you to drive up there and see the new $1.5 million armada of yellow trucks and tractors and graders and loaders that we own now. I want you to go look at that. And if you can't find one of those new transfers, I found it last weekend. It's up there by the sanitary pond up by Couch's Vineyard, hidden behind the trees. Brand new transfer. You're not going to find it all sitting up here. They got it stashed all over the county. I don't see any new patrol cars coming in for these deputies that are responding Code 3. Well, I've never seen a transfer respond Code 3. And there's a lot of transfer companies in this county. You talk about spending local? What the hell are we buying trucks for? There's a million Jippo truckers in this county that can bid those jobs. Now, I'm asking you, take a good look at this budget. It's heavily weighted against law enforcement to the tune of 12% or $2 million. And I showed Bob Lawton that last Thursday, and he agreed with me. You need to go find some more money, but you're not going to get it all off of the law enforcement bargaining groups. You're not going to ride this budget to the end on the backs of your employees. It can't happen. It cannot happen. I'm sorry. Any questions?
Thank you for your comments, Jane.
Thank you.
Tracy Busby, President, Deputy Sheriff Association. I don't know if I'll get emotional. I can tell you I'll probably get pissed off. So what I'm going to do is read my statement in so I can make it through. Over the past several months, the DSA, Deputy Sheriff Association, has met with the county representatives to discuss possible alternatives in avoiding layoffs within our bargaining group of those represented by the DSA. Several times during this process, members of the negotiating team thought they had accomplished the task of meeting the expectations of the county administration, and those facing layoffs would be spared due to the members of the bargaining group paying a portion of the employee PERS contribution. Each time this has happened, we have ultimately found out that our hopes in resolving this has not met the numbers that county administration has set. In our view, this has only occurred due to the continued changing of numbers, our calculation changes of county administration. It would be inappropriate for me to accuse Mr. Lawton or Ms. Ryan of lying to us, but I will say the lack of complete and thorough communication on their part has played a large role in the DSA's failure to reach an agreement with the county that would save those who will be laid off at the end of this week. I understand in part the difficulty that is caused when our state government is dysfunctional and the repercussions and shockwaves that will be felt at the local level by their actions and decisions. But what has just transpired during this process is downright shameful and inexcusable to have a constant change of percentages and our numbers, which has left us confused to what the real numbers are, which we need to be met to save those positions. I would think logically that could be easily found in totaling each employee's total wages and benefits, excluding any portion currently paid by the employee, such as a long-term disability and the employee's portion of health insurance premiums. But in reality, this has not been the case. What the DSA board has gone through the last 3 weeks can only be described as a roller coaster of meeting and bringing to our membership several times what has been inaccurate percentages and numbers, which has created confusion and a partial distrust of our abilities to lead this association. Additionally, this has made us look somewhat like we belong as members of the current state legislature or possibly even a board of supervisor members for Calaveras County. Neither of us under the current setting would choose to do so. It is with frustration and sadness that we are left with no alternative at the moment to pull the 6.1 concession previously offered to the county to save those targeted for layoffs on Friday. As of last night's meeting, we near unanimously voted to reject the county's request to take a 10% reduction in salary or benefit reduction. This request of the 10% comes with no reason of why that number was requested. This number far exceeds what portion was needed to pay for those being laid off, and it further is the DSA's belief that a portion of this money would go to pay for money spent out of the contingency fund to support library costs, archives, and the Visitor Bureau, which, although are worthy causes, are not nearly as important as in our belief as public safety staff during lean times. Further casualties of this mishandled bargaining process is that Sheriff Down, in an effort to leave as much staffing in place as possible, felt the need to eliminate the lieutenant's positions within the department. This caused a bump back process within the DSA unit. The DSA met with Sheriff Down several times to work on solutions to resolve this and save the positions. We thought we had reached an agreement, but with the constant percentage and numbers changing, what has now happened is the AB 443 money is not on the table, and the DSA is not allowing 2 lieutenants to bump back into the association. This is causing 2 gentlemen, right there, our 2 lieutenants, with over 50 years of service, combined service in this county, into forced retirement, not of their choosing. I will shortly defend our decision that it is the responsibility of the leadership of the DSA board to protect the wages, benefits, and jobs of full-time association members. The cause of these 2 men bumping back would cause a bump back of 2 sergeants losing 20% in pay, 2 senior deputies losing 12% in pay, and 2 additional deputies being laid off. It was not until approximately 1 week ago that I was made aware of this county code and made a difficult decision in contacting DSA attorney Paul Goya to seek legal advice on how to handle this unfortunate set of circumstances. This is by far the worst experience I have had to lead this association through, in my opinion, could possibly have been avoided if the leadership of this county could have thoroughly took the time and brought workable and manageable numbers to this respective unit. At the hearing on July 8th, and I might be off a day, it might be the 9th, in the Sequoia room, CAO Bob Lawton stated that DSA members could save the jobs within the DSA membership if we hit the percentage given to us. We were told any way we chose to do this would be fine and included such ideas as furloughs, although I'm going to let you know that's not an option due to scheduling for public safety, and I happen to agree with that. Salary reductions are paying a portion of our PERS. The members chose the PERS route thinking this would be the best solution. It was it was only after hitting the percentage given that we were later told if we chose the PERS route, the percentage would need to be higher, and we had not met the numbers requested by the county administration. When the Board of Supervisors met in emergency session last Friday and came back with 10% across the board, we again attempted to find a workable solution and met with Francine Osborne to find out where we stood. I made the decision to go directly to Assistant CAO Shirley Ryan and ask what the additional cost would be. I was given a number which brought our cost up to $337,000, an approximate increase of $118,000. I met with Sheriff Downham in an attempt to resolve this issue due to a bump back and thought we had gained headway and a possible solution could be reached. I arrived back on Monday morning to find that the $337,000 mark had grown to $493,000. And realized at that time 53 members of a bargaining group would not be able to absorb those numbers and Monday afternoon, the votes were taken that reflect our rejection of the lack of reasonableness the county administration has placed on this bargaining group. Again, I repeat, I am saddened that what I believe are competent people were not able to resolve what could have been a workable solution, and further troubled that two quality people with 27 and 27 years respectively will be leaving county service. This is unexcusable. It's even unexcusable that I was even placed in this situation, that I had to tell two longtime friends that, hey, I got to look out for the betterment of the association. So after spending the night of not sleeping, after I'm having to tell two gentlemen that our decision is I have to put them out of the job, I hope tonight you can go home, and I hope you don't get any sleep.
Sheriff Downham. During this budget process, we've tried to include, we've taken money out of our communications project that referred to as AB 443 money. 3 different times in this process, using that AB 443 money, we have met the concessions that the county wanted from the bargaining units. We saved everybody's job. Even last Friday, when the bargaining units came into my office, told me the numbers that they were given by Ms. Ryan, we had it worked out where we may lose one person, but we could make it with the AB 443 money. Yesterday morning we come in, we find out Jeannie's unit, instead of having a commitment of $78,000 more, like was told Friday, now owed $253,000. The Deputy Sheriff's Association, instead of owing $118,000, now owed $257,000. Went to the department head meeting yesterday, and I asked, why do we need so much out of those small units? And I was told that we needed to make up the $600,000 that the board spent in preliminary budget. That sounds reasonable to me. But when I ask, why is the criminal justice component of this county being requested to make up the entire $600,000, the answer made no sense. And quite frankly, folks, I am not going to throw that AB 443 money into the pot to make up the $600,000 to help fund the libraries or other non-criminal justice components of this budget. Friday, we had it worked out that AB 443 money was going to help the probation department. It was going to help the district attorney's office, and it was going to save our agency. Yesterday's numbers are unachievable. I've made the decision to withdraw the AB 443 money until final budget. Once we get a real number, I'll pick up whatever pieces I can. But it's just gotten to the point of ridiculous numbers out there that we trust at all.
Jim Turley, representing SEIU. I agree with everything that, well, the concepts that Jeannie presented and the figures. I agree totally with what Tracy said. We have not been given accurate figures. Before I get started on my real announcement, I would take exception to the monies that are being diverted from the road fund to the Sheriff's Department directly. On the basis of the more you take from us, the harder the roads are going to get to be repaired, and you're going to cut into your snow plowing. And as far as vehicles go, we're driving 1981 revamped Chevy trucks to plow the snow. We don't have brand new vehicles in the areas where we need them. We have given up vehicles to save positions. So, and the board is aware of this. So I take exception to that part of Jeannie's comment. Anyway.
I just need to say something without getting into he said, she said. There's a difference. Public Works money is non-general fund dollars.
Yes, ma'am.
That money cannot be transferred to general fund functions. So, I mean, I understood what Jeannie said and you said, so it's who's got the worst vehicles, everybody does, but I just needed to make it clear that it's non-general fund dollars that cannot be moved over to general fund dollars.
But my understanding is that you are looking at absorbing some of the vehicle license fees that have
Money-
historically gone.
I don't want to get into it,
Yeah.
but that's discretionary money on behalf of the board. We can take that,
Yes, I understand
which
that.
we have. Thank
Okay.
you. I
And the
don't
more,
wanna
the more
get
you
into a
take, the
budget
more you take, the
issue.
less the roads are going to be repaired. And the harder it's going to be for Code 3 responses. Anyway, SEIU. Given the less than 24-hour response time that we were imposed upon, I took this to the board of SEIU. We decided we did not have time to organize a vote, and basically came up with the conclusion of no. We don't understand what part of no you don't hear. Money being aside, we told you no to 7%, and then you come back with the 10%. What makes you think we're stupid enough to think that 10% is less than 7%? You people don't understand it. You don't want to think outside the box. You just want it simple to blame our organizations, all three of them, for your problems. You have not saved in the good times. You have not provided legitimate, good, sound government. And this goes for this group of people as well as the state. You overspend. You don't look at what you need. You look at what you want. There's a big difference between what is required to live on and what is wanted to live on. Now, I gave a counter proposal, and to me it's the fairest, and it's supported by what we have presented in the past as a group. And this is a sliding scale of percentages. And it goes basically like this. Anybody in the county where median income is $40,000 or less, anybody making $100,000 or more should give 12.5% pay reduction. Anybody making $85,000 or less should give a 10% pay reduction. Anybody making $70,000 or more should give a 7.5 pay reduction. Anybody making $55,000 or more should give a 5% pay reduction. Anybody making $40,000 or more should give 2.5. Anybody making less than $40,000 should not be required to take a cut in pay. With the median income in this county of $40,000, you can't expect 10% of $40,000 to be equal to 12% or 10% of $100,000. It doesn't equate. The difference is it means putting food on the table for the lesser paid people. You need to start at the top. You need to make bigger cuts at the top. You cannot expect equal. When you guys make the decision to assume the same percentage income increase that we get at SEIU, managers and directors get $5,000 for every $100,000. We get $1,000. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't equate. You can't keep living this lifestyle. On a personal note, we have presented twice that the directors need to be laid off the same as the normal employee. No directors are on the chopping block that I know of. We were told that's not possible, not feasible, won't be considered. Now, you guys have to make the decision. And you're not going to put it on SEIU, you're not going to put it on DSA, and you're not going to put it on the new association. Our memberships are solid. with our opinions. You guys are the ones that are on the waffle iron, sitting there going back and forth. You can't make up your minds what you need to do. Get off the stone and do something. Thank you.
Mr. Turley and the others, I've let you go beyond 5 minutes because of the emotionalness and the complexity of these decisions. But from this particular board member's perspective, and people are complaining about the fact that the numbers change. You know, I left after the meeting on our last board meeting on the 21st, confident that we had reached an agreements and accords with the various units. And I was enjoying a few days off visiting my daughter in Oregon. Found out in mid-trip that with this adoption, or the proposed adoption of the state budget, that all of our assumptions were wrong. That we had to have a special session on last Friday to consider the ramifications that the surpluses that we thought we were dealing with had evaporated in the state budget. Now, you said just a moment ago that you thought that we should stick with our numbers. I'm going to use a comparison that I was thinking about on the way to work this morning. That I am a pilot. I haven't flown in recent years, but I flew for many, many years. And as pilot in command of an aircraft, I mean, you have to make that decision each time that you lift off about whether you're going to make it or not, whether you have enough fuel, whether your airplane is overloaded. You need to be certain that you're going to be able to make it to your destination. Well, I regard this particular budget year, and keep in mind that we're not immune, or we're not standing alone in this situation. I mean, we saw a headline this morning that the Bank of America is going to be shutting down at least 10% of their branches across the nation. Now, that's a very significant kind of a thing to compare ourselves to. We are not immune to the national and the worldwide economic contraction that's taking place here. Getting back to my point about pilot and command, I take the responsibilities of being chairman of this board very seriously, and I do not want to take off at the beginning of this fiscal year knowing that I don't have enough fuel in the tanks to make it to the end of the year. I absolutely can't do that. And I have publicly stated on a number of occasions, we all have, that we are willing to take personally the exact share the painful contraction that we're all facing here. I really take exception to the suggestion that we're somehow floating above all this stuff and we're just capriciously and arbitrarily making these decisions. We're dealing at each and every moment with the information that we have at that particular moment. With all due respect, that says we're doing the best job that we can do. Thank you.
I understand that, and I appreciate it, and I thank you for it. And you should also know that as supervisors, you fall in the 7.5 range. You don't fall in the 12.5 range on your income basis.
No, we don't.
Okay?
10%.
No, we don't.
Well, they're recommending 10, but on the sliding scale I gave them.
Yeah, I would not feel comfortable taking any reduced percentage reduction in salary compared to anybody else. But Jim or Mr. Turley, you know, we only have so many dollars to work with, and we have pledged our commitment to try as best in our abilities to keep all of these positions intact, and recognizing that we're asking a lot for people in the bargaining units to all take an equal reduction so that we'll preserve positions. I'm not in control of the amount of money that we're going to have coming in the door. I mean, we've got both fingers and toes crossed that our property taxes are going to be paid What happens if people can't afford to pay their property taxes that we're assuming that they are going to pay? This is extremely complex, and this is not the time to be negotiating the contract, but I want everybody to hear that there is no one on this board that is taking these decisions lightly. There's no one on this board that feels like that somebody said it was an ultimatum or take it or leave it type of thing. That certainly is not our intent. Our intent is to be honest, forthright, and communicate the facts as we know them on any given day. And I think that you'd have to agree that if I'm driving down the road and 300 or 400 miles away and hear that our state legislature has removed at least $1 million from the budget that we had anticipated having, that's a circumstance that do I ignore that? Do I come back and say, oh yeah, we can ratify the agreements that we made last week, knowing that I don't have as much fuel in the tank as I had anticipated having? I wish things were different. I honest to goodness wish that things were different, but they are not. Thank you very much for your comments.
Okay. Can I make one more, please?
Sure.
Well, actually, two. My formula works the same dollars as your formula. It's just outside the box. Okay? That's number one. Number two, SEIU was asked for general funds in the amount of $528,000, non-general funds in the amount of $917,000. Just so everybody knows, and if you do the addition to the other associations, you're looking at probably $3 million. SEIU already gave $3.1 to this board by not taking raises and by absorbing the insurance payments. So,
Jim,
what have you done with that money?
All right. Mr. Tuttle, do you have a comment?
One is the state taking that $1.5 million was entirely foreseeable, and it was foreseen at the time of our first preliminary budget hearing, and that's the reason that there was $1.5 million set there. It was stated at the beginning of that reason. Now, the legislature's strategy, and maybe the governor's too, in throwing it in at the end so they wouldn't get lobbied by a bunch of local governments, it seemed to have lulled this board into thinking that there was not any chance in the world that that thing was going to be pulled. But it didn't pull many of the rest of us. I don't understand. When we were in that preliminary budget hearing and the board started pulling that money out and throwing it around, knowing that we probably don't have it, I was in a little bit of a state of shock when I walked out of there. It was like the board didn't understand what it was doing. But I don't understand this whole process that you followed, because it makes no sense at all. At the beginning it made sense. It didn't make any sense when you started digging into the $1.5 million. And I am a beneficiary of a part of that. Now, I'm speaking now as a county officer and as a member of the community. And then with 24 hours to go to your board meeting, because I guess it was yesterday morning, the bargaining units found out for the first time the real numbers. To think that those bargaining units could go out and sell something different to their people and come back today with an answer, it shows a little lack of grasp of reality. They have to sell this stuff to their people. They have to convince their people to vote for it, because it's a big sacrifice. Now, two of those units have expressed a willingness to make a significant sacrifice to help the county through this time. It would be a crying shame if somehow the board could not find a way to take advantage of that. It's been botched to this point, and I think all five of you will have to agree with that, the way the unions have been dealt with. But we are where we are, and I don't know what you're going to talk about in your closed session. I imagine this is exactly what you'll talk about, how you're going to deal with the bargaining units. But they've come up, two of them have indicated at least a willingness to sacrifice a significant amount of money to help us through this budget process. And I'd encourage you to find some way to make that work.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else wishing to address the board on any topic this morning? Good morning, Larry.
Good morning. Larry Cornish, Mark Twain St. Joseph's Hospital. Wanted to give you a little bit of an update of some of the activities that we're involved with in the community, specifically in the community. First of all, I'd like to talk about some of the mini health fairs that we have going on in the community. Last Wednesday, we were up at Mountain Ranch doing a mini health fair during the music in the park session. We'll be in Arnold in August for another Music in the Parks put on by the Calaveras County Arts Council, and we'll be doing a mini health fair up there too with blood pressure checks and health information. Last Friday, we took part in the Resource Connections food distribution. There was over 170 families that were involved in that food distribution. And we handed out water bottles and healthcare information about our free nurse call center and some of the other payment assistance type activities that we have at the hospital for those type of families. We will be at the 2 distributions in August providing the same sort of services. 2 weeks ago, we were at the Farmers Market and Angels Camp doing a mini health fair, and we'll be there again on August 14th at Utica Park. And then we'll close out our mini health fair series for this summer by being at Murphy's the first Friday in September. We're still on track to open our new family medical center here in San Andreas in early September, and Jennifer Josies, who's one of our physician's assistants, will be our primary care provider at that new family medical center right on the hospital campus. We're starting the planning on our large health fair that we're going to be having on September 26th at the hospital. That's where we'll have about 50 different community organizations providing healthcare information and other things. We'll be doing our normal blood draws and free flu shots and pneumonia shots and just all kinds of good health information and activities. Wanted to let you know that our second Community Cares video has now been posted on YouTube, and you should be getting an email message about that today. This one speaks about our patient satisfaction scores in the emergency department, so we're interviewing Johanna Vermelford, our emergency room manager. And the easiest way to gain access to that for your audience here today is just to go to YouTube and do a search on Mark Twain Hospital, and the video will be there for your pleasure, so to speak. One of the other activities that we just started today, or just announced today, is our community grant program. We have about $20,000 available to community organizations who share the same mission and values as we do here in the community. And the way that you can access that grant program and apply for it with a letter of intent is to go to our website at marktwainhospital.com. And I think the letters of intent have to be in by, well, let's just roughly say September 1st. So we have a lot of time there for our community organizations who might want to take advantage of that community grant process. And finally, last week we accepted the Avatar International 2008 Award for Patient Satisfaction. This is a recognition to hospitals who are consistently in the top quartile in patient satisfaction scores across the nation. This is both in patient satisfaction for our inpatients and patient satisfaction for our emergency room patients, willingness to return and willingness to recommend. So we're very proud of that award. I thought about dragging it across the street, but decided against it at the last minute. Any questions of me? Thank you very much.
We don't go away.
Oh. Is the health fair on September 26th, the one that starts at 6:30 a.m.?
7 o'clock to noon. 7 o'clock till noon.
Okay.
And there will be a long line for blood draws, I know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Cornish, can you tell us more about this free nurse call center?
Sure.
How do you access that?
The nurse call center is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is an 800 number, free 800 number that any community member can call, and they can talk specifically or directly to a nurse about any illness or injury that they might have, to get physician referrals, get advice. There's also an audio library, so if you want to learn about snake bites or diabetes, you can work your way through the menu and learn more about that particular illness or injury. Again, it's a free service of Mark Twain St. Joseph's Hospital. Unfortunately, I can't give you the phone number because I can't remember it, but I think what I'll do is I'll put out a press release to let the community, remind the community that it is available. It's a great program for our community, free of charge, totally free of charge, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay, sounds good. Any other questions of Mr. Cornish?
All right, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Give my congratulations to the cutest cowgirl.
I'll tell you said that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Larry.
Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. My name's Bonnie Newman. I'm from Double Springs, and an update on my ongoing beef with the road department. I met last week with a really nice gentleman named Terry Jordan, who met with me on site, and we looked at the trees, and he said, well, he didn't think there was much hope for the lilac tree. That one's gone. But the other trees would surely survive, and I agreed with him that they would survive, but they weren't doing what they were intended to do, which was to provide shade. So with that, we left the trimming of the trees. I had been in contact with a local nurseryman, Don Urbanus, in Rising Sun Nursery in Burson, who offered to assist in some way, maybe a training, maybe some paperwork for the road department to have a little more skills in trimming trees. And Mr. Jordan was more than happy to receive that, because he mentioned that very shortly they have had a request by the McCollum Hill Fire Department to trim the trees in the McCollum Hill Community Park. And he says, can you imagine the kind of stink that's going to cause? And I said, yes, I think so. So hopefully there'll be a meeting of the minds before the McCollum Hill Park gets trimmed. But if not, I would suggest every master gardener to go down and look at your trees in McCollum Hill, because if they're not trimmed properly, the chain gang from the road department is going to descend upon the park with chainsaws in McCollum Hill. So get on that, folks, as soon as you can. The other issue that we talked about is firewood. And there is a policy that the road department is supposed to follow in cutting trees. You cut the limbs, you leave them on the side of the road for 5 days. If they're still there, then the road department can come and pick them up. But the road department is not supposed to immediately remove all the firewood. So I let Mr. Jordan know that I'm still waiting to find out what happened to my firewood on Double Springs, because a whole lot of cords disappeared for the senior giveaway program, which he said he doesn't think exists, but I'm still hoping that there's something there. And I told him, in that respect, if you find that firewood, I won't call them crooks and thieves anymore. And that's where I left it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Morning, Mr. Studley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm David Studley. I'm from Mountain Range. It was brought to my attention by a number of you within the last several weeks that my suggestion of emptying your own waste baskets probably is insufficient to close the current budget gap. But I'm also told that among you supervisors, in your private discussions, that you are actively thinking about ways to structurally change the form of government in order to meet the serious almost catastrophic concerns that this county is presently facing. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know who among you are making those suggestions. But I applaud the ideas of combining departments. I applaud the ideas of reassigning responsibilities from one department to the other in order to save money and save jobs. And yet I hear this morning again that you're trying to save jobs across the board, to make uniform cuts everywhere. And I encourage you, when it comes time privately to make the hard choices that you have, to remember that it's not the role of government to perpetuate itself. You don't exist to exist. You exist to serve the needs of the public that requires services from government. That doesn't mean that we necessarily have to have our roads plowed. Doesn't mean that we have to have a sheriff's department. It doesn't mean that we have to have community health. What it means is that you have to make the tough decisions to allocate between those fundamental needs, what the public really requires for its own basic welfare. Now, as you know, I'm a proponent of public safety. I don't think you should be able to, you should worry about keeping libraries open. I'm a proponent of libraries as well. If people are worried about being robbed or injured or accosted on their way to those libraries. I don't applaud any of you, the very difficult decisions that you have to make. But I encourage you to continue, at least what's been rumored to me, to be the private discussions that you might be having regarding making real structural change. And I encourage you from the bottom of my soul, as a resident of Calaveras County, to protect the public and not to disable the sheriff's department from being able to provide the services. You know, my wife has a scanner. She listens to the police calls while we sit down on the patio by the house. There are calls 24 hours a day. People need the help. People have had accidents on the side of the road. People are involved in domestic disputes. People need that service in order to be able to exist in Calaveras County. I encourage you to remember that in making the hard decisions that you're going to be forced to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Studley. Good morning.
My name is Michael Murray, and obviously I'm with Public Safety role, though. I don't have any idea about budgets. That's not my forte. You guys have a lot of tough decisions that you guys are going to have to make. Everybody that's spoken today from the public sector is concerned about their little worlds and stuff. I like nice streets. I like culture. But history is littered with societies that had great culture that were destroyed from within or without because they didn't have the safety aspects. Now, I don't think a foreign country is going to come and take over Calaveras County, but we could very well easily be destroyed by internal problems. Now, I rely on the Sheriff's Department for backup. You guys' lives depend on me when you guys are in series, but there's a lot of times that we have to wait for them to get on scene before we're allowed to go in. And, excuse me, with less deputies on the street, that wait's going to get longer. And if it's a threat to us, I'm not law enforcement, I'm not trained in that kind of stuff, I sit on the sidelines while you die. And I've done this before. I did it in Stockton. I mean, I can look and see the call right down the road, and I'm forced to sit there and watch you guys go. And, like right now, usually their response times are very, very good. But there's a chance that they're not going to be. And I love libraries. I love having nice roads. Hell, I drive down them roads, Code 3. But I would rather hit a few potholes in the road, knowing that, you know, these gentlemen's troops are going to be out there backing me up. And knowing that, the, you know, the criminals right now, and I'm a little outspoken, and I've been known to be a little bit hard-edged. But if I was going to commit a crime, this would be the county I'd come to. Because this is a good place to do it. And with these cuts, you're going to make it easier. Now, everybody out here has got concerns and things that they want, you know, to protect their own. And that's probably what it boils down to. But you have to look out for what's best for all of us. And you guys have a tough job. I'm glad I don't have to make those decisions. But you need to put the culture, the society first, and the safety of that society over everything else. Because if we lose the battle with the criminals, you don't have a society. And you don't have anything left. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murray.
I'd like to say something for the public. I see, because I'm public, I work here, I used to work here, that on my street, half the homes have been foreclosed on. I'm not worried about criminal, I'm not worried about my house burned down, I'm not worried about getting the sheriff, I'm worried about keeping my house. There's one house that's been foreclosed twice in 3 years. Now, I've been to a meeting and stuff from a general plan of Valley Springs. The biggest employer here is you guys. You guys ran all the public people gone. We're gone. All my friends have moved from Calaveras County. I told you the other day that I'm leaving. We're leaving. I mean, all the friends I had 15 years ago, they left. They didn't leave because they're broke. They got out of California because they can't afford to live here. It's getting worse. You had no problem raising the RIM fees. You know, I have lots with septics and water meters on that I'm paying water fees on. I'm paying huge taxes on. I can't afford to put the house on. If I put the house on, you guys will make more money than I will on rent. I'm not building here no more. I'm leaving. And that's what my friends are saying. And so basically all the public workers are going to be just feeding on themselves because the public's leaving. And that's what the state of California should. It's not just Calaveras County. And I love Calaveras County. I came here, I want to live my whole life, but I'm leaving.
Okay, anyone else wishing to address the board this morning?
Where are you moving?
Well, I'm in California, I'll tell you that.
Oh, I just wasn't clear if you already had picked a place.
I have a place up in Pinecrest I want to do. They're only about 2 years behind you guys.
Pinecrest. In Tuolumne?
Yes.
Okay, anyone else here wishing to address the board? All right. We can-
Mr. Chair, can we just take a 5-minute break for a second?
Okay, there's been a request for a 5-minute break. We will be reconvening at 10:21. All right, getting back underway, I would like to draw our attention to item number 8. This is a public hearing, possible board action regarding this is listed as a denial of an appeal. I think that we are hearing an appeal. We'll either approve it or deny it, but it's just for clarification. This is for an encroachment permit for a swimming pool and a wall in the right-of-way at 2390 Arrowhead in Copperopolis. So we have Public Works giving an explanation of this.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, members of the board. Tom Garcia with the Department of Public Works. I can boil down this staff report and attachments into a couple of bullet points. The facts are that there's a pool and a wall within the public right-of-way. The wall is around 8 feet. It is unpermitted. We have no plans or inspections on the wall. That's what happened. Now, how it happened, at the last page of the staff report, there's a chronology of events. The building department received plans by the owners of the property prepared by Premier Pool and Spa. Based on those plans, the inspector went out on August 5th, looked at the hole in the ground, looked at the plans, determined that the hole in the ground matched what was on the plans. August 31st, the building inspector went out once again to look to make sure that the rebar and the pre-gunite inspection was done, that again, what was on the plans matched what was in the ground. At that point, he issued I'm sorry, on August 16th. At that point, he saw the beginnings of the construction for a masonry block wall, which was not in the plans, and he requested some information on it. August 31st, they received the information they requested on the pool section of the inspection, but nothing on the wall. April 2nd, 2007, there was a request for, that's when the inspectors went back.
Mr. Garcia, if I can
Yes, sir.
interrupt you for just a second. You said that on August 31st, the engineering for the raised bond beam wall was received?
The raised bond beam was a portion of the pool plan, not the wall in the right-of-way.
Okay, but you had previously said that there was a wall that they noticed in the plans that wasn't, on site they saw a block wall that was being built that wasn't on the plans. Where was
Correct. If you go to the attachment which shows the plans,
Yes.
you'll see up there, there's a 20-foot setback which is shown. You'll see the pool, which is very clearly identified. But no place on this plan you'll see this.
It says 6-foot stucco wall by others, right along that boundary line.
By others.
It's
This
still
was
calling
not-
for a wall, it's still calling for a wall there.
But by others, there was no engineering drawings done for it. There had to be another, for a 6-foot wall, you were required to submit plans and have inspections for it. The last thing you want is a 6-foot wall falling over on someone. So there.
With all due respect, the Uniform Building Code exempts a 6-foot wall from building code or engineering.
I'll defer to the building commissioner on that.
Jeff White, building official, Calaveras County. Walls that are under 6 feet in height are exempt from building permits. Walls that exceed 6 feet or fences that exceed 6 feet in height require a building permit. There are sections of this particular structure that measure 93 inches, which is 3 inches short of 8 feet. So clearly there are sections of this that exceed those parameters, which we feel is not exempt from a building permit.
Okay, I don't want to appear argumentative, but I've been on this site scores of times, and the only thing that approaches 8 feet high are the columns.
As correct as that is, it's still part of the fence, it's still part of the wall, which is a requirement as those elements of that wall, and as far as the interpretation of the building permit requirements would be.
Okay. Please continue, Mr. Garcia.
Inspectors went out again to address the location of the pool once it was discovered that there was an error in the plans, and that's what this boils down to, is there is an error in the plans. There were requests made on April 2nd, 2007 for a property line location. Jeff White requested of Premier Pool and Spa to do a survey establishing the property lines. On April 20th, a stop work order was issued based on not having the appropriate property lines located. You'll see on the second attachment where the property lines are located on this plan. This was not prepared by Premier Pool and Spa. This was actually county staff that went out and drew them on the plan. I believe to date we have not yet received anything from Premier Pool and Spa indicating where they believe the property lines are.
The dashed orange line which says wall?
That's correct.
That's the wall that was built?
That's the wall that is over 6 feet.
So it's not where it indicated on the drawing?
That's correct. And there's also the setback line, which you can see on the plans. It's located on the north side of the pool, where in fact it's adjacent to the house. So that's mislabeled on the plans. Now, in the interim, between August 16th and when the stop work order was issued, when the request for the information on the wall was first made to the owners and the pool company, the wall was completed. So sometime between August 16th and April 20th, 2007, the wall was finished without any plans or permits. Let's see. Back to April 20th, 2007, stop work order issued, instructed to survey the lot. The pool and noted that the pool and fence appeared to be in the setback.
So I got one other question, Tom. You're saying after the stop work order was issued on April 20th, you went back in June and the wall was complete? So it was completed after the stop work order?
I'd like to provide some clarification because I think after I've talked to both the inspectors regarding this issue, there was actually, to their account, not any stop work that addressed the wall itself. We were under the understanding that that was a possibility. However, after talking to the two inspectors involved, by their recollection, the wall was erected between inspections.
But there was a request made for information on the wall. For plans, they stated the plans do not show a wall.
That's correct, yes. So
they did need the engineering drawings for the wall, and that request was made.
However, the wall did appear between inspections. At that point, we notified the owner again that there was an issue with the property line and that the wall needed to be addressed as well as the pool due to the proximity of the property line, setbacks, and other issues out there that we needed to get to the bottom of.
Brings us up to June 13th, 2007. No further inspections until property line issue is resolved. March 16th, a variance was applied for, which was denied because they can't give a variance on public property. And July 31st was when the letter was sent stating they can't give a variance. They did request an appeal of the denial of the encroachment permit. The encroachment permit was denied, is recommended, or the encroachment permit was denied. The appeal is being made on, well, code indicates that the appeal should be made on the three items. One, that the applicant will be substantially damaged by the refusal to grant the permit as requested. Two, that no other reasonable method of obtaining the desired results is available except as proposed by the applicant. And three, that the granting of the permit will not be material, detrimental to the public interest, safety, health, and welfare, or interest to other property. There are a couple of issues that may contradict some of those statements. One is the picture that I believe is in the package shows, let me get to the picture, there we are, shows a fire hydrant near the wall. We don't know where the water line is. We don't know where the wall is in respect to the water line. Again, because the engineer, or the plans show the wall in a different location and do not show any utilities. So we're not sure of the impact on CCWD, whether or not it's over water. So again, engineered plans would have helped determine that. The wall is within the right-of-way. If we abandoned the right-of-way in that stretch, it pretty much precludes the county from widening the road anywhere else because you can't neck it down and then come back out. You can't have a two-way section of road and neck it down to one way and then come back out to two-way. So based on the actions by county staff, the inspection record, the error in the plans, and the damage to the public right-of-way, staff is recommending that this appeal be denied.
Supervisor Walensky.
I do have one question on the narrative on the agenda item here, this agenda submittal. You referred to a license agreement which includes language consistent with section 12.08.320, which requires permittee to relocate or remove the encroachment in the future upon demand of the road commissioner. If the primary reason for removal is something that may happen in the future. And I'm not making an argument for or against the other issues in question here, but on this particular issue, wouldn't the public interest be served in either way? That is, removal being one option and a license agreement that would require removal at the point where a road would need to be put through there. I'm trying to figure out where the public interest is in this and whether the solutions are equivalent.
For a license agreement, I have not issued a license agreement for acquisition of public right-of-way for long term. I can't address that. I would have to, I'm not familiar with a license agreement where the county's interests would be protected. I'm sorry, I can't answer the question.
It may be a legal question.
The county code, without regard to a license, I think confirming it in writing is certainly a good idea. And that's typically done with encroachment permits, but the county code contains this requirement that it would have to be removed at the order of the road commissioner at a future date. Beyond that, I think it's a policy issue. I think the Public Works is typically careful to preserve and protect all of the right-of-ways so that these issues don't arise on some future date. So, but the road commissioner does have the authority to, at any time, order the encroachment to be removed.
Would that be you?
That would be me.
Tom, who owns the property? I wasn't clear on that.
The property that...
The homeowner?
If we go to the plan, everything on the street side of the big red right-of-way line is county.
Is it an easement? I think Marie,
is it
right
an
easement?
Easement or is it fee?
It's
county?
right-of-way. Generally, you don't own, the county wouldn't own things in a fee title.
Okay.
But we own right-of-way, which is prescriptive rights.
Right. Okay, I think that's the question.
I'm looking at this picture and the pool itself is on the other side of the actual property line, a portion of it.
That's correct.
So it's not just the wall encroaching into the encroachment. The pool itself is outside the property boundary.
That's correct.
Oh, wait a minute. If the property line is what they own too, then who owns the land? Who owns the land? Do they own the land, but there's a recorded right-of-way?
There is a recorded right-of-way, which the county has prescriptive rights.
Okay, I understand that, but even though, I mean, Gary said the property line, to me, you have a property line, you own your property line one side, and the other side, the property line's owned by another entity.
The county.
So, well, that's the question I asked. And so if the county owns it in fee title because it was deeded to them when the subdivision went in, is a whole lot different than if they own the property and we have a recorded right-of-way. So, I mean, that was the question I emailed to ask who owns it.
I think that's a distinction without a real difference in this, because, again, the county has prescriptive rights to the right-of-way.
Okay, so if we granted it, then we are granting, it's like giving a gift of public funds.
Exactly. We're giving away our prescriptive right. We no longer have the ability to do what we do in right-of-way.
I'd like Mr. Jones to respond to that, because as I understand it, if the board has the prerogative of putting a restriction on that, it's a license, that the homeowner would agree that if and when the road it was necessary to expand the road, that those improvements would be removed. You're going to hopefully see evidence here that will give you a strong indication that the road is likely never to be expanded, but they're willing to encumber the property accordingly. So the license agreement would not give title to that ground. Is that correct, County Council?
Well, I have to agree that there's a distinction without a difference here. Regardless of whether you own the fee or not, if you can never use the property, then you've, for all intents and purposes, given the property to someone else. In this county, I think in most cases we have public right-of-way. In some instances, I think they're rare, but the county actually has title to the roadway. I've never seen that was a difference here, because if the property owner owns to the center of Highway 49, he can never use the part of that goes to the center of Highway 49. And so it's a distinction. I think he's correct. It's a distinction without a difference. There isn't, if that's what this is going to turn on, then there are government code requirements for public notice. If we're truly talking about giving title to property, to county property, then we have to go through a public notice process to do that. But I would stress that giving a license that gives the permanent right to use a piece of property is essentially the same thing as giving fee ownership.
Would that not cloud the title? It could be for any reason the county wanted to use that property, that right of way.
It's certainly, that's correct, yes.
Well, let me ask another question, only slightly related, but let's just say this thing stays where it is in its condition and location. If the right-of-way goes through the pool, we've talked about the gift of public funds on the one hand, but wouldn't this technically be qualify as a gift of a part of a pool to the public?
So
Would that be your county park?
This could be the first public pool in Paparopolis, actually, the way it's laid out. So I'm just wondering how...
There's a long history of granting encroachments onto public property with the understanding that when the time comes, if it becomes an obstruction, if it needs to be used, it can be removed. There's no law that says that that's a gift of public property.
All right. Thank you.
I'm trying to make the difference here between giving an encroachment permit that is permanent. I don't think it matters particularly who owns the fee title. If you give a permanent encroachment permit, you are essentially giving title to the property.
All right.
I was never under the impression that an encroachment permit, by definition, was in perpetuity. That there's always the specter hanging over it that it could be snatched away or.
My point exactly. They never are.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Garcia, do you have more?
I would be glad to answer any additional questions.
I don't have any questions of you, but don't go away.
But I do have one additional, I'm sorry. Is there any indication as to how this situation could have come to pass? I mean,
yes.
Was it a surveyor's error?
It was an error in the plans that were submitted by the county, or submitted to the county. I apologize. The error in the plans were submitted to the county, which clearly show a 20-foot setback line in the wrong location, which clearly show a wall to be constructed by others, which means under a separate permit, under a separate contract, shown in the wrong location.
Right. Well, I can see that, but I'm just interested in where the error occurred. Is it the person
the person who drew the plans did not look at the property to determine where the road was and where the right-of-way was and where the setback was? Because if you look at this 20-foot setback versus what's on the corrected one, that's a substantial difference, both in alignment and location.
So it got into the system through the error, and it was only upon inspection that it was found to be outside its boundary.
That's correct. And again, the inspectors who went out initially just looked at the plans to make sure you dug a hole, this is what's on the plans, you look good.
I mean, that's the same with houses. We don't survey
Right,
we assume when they submit it, they know where their property lines are.
And if something comes up in the interim where the inspector has a question or a concern, then he makes note of it, which is what happened in this case. Yes. Unfortunately, what also happened in this case is in the interim between when we started requesting information on the wall and location, the entire wall was built. And again, going to the picture, you'll see a fire hydrant adjacent to that wall. And we're not sure where the water line is in location to the wall, whether or not it's underneath it or adjacent to it, but there could be an issue with CCWD, which we haven't addressed. It's not our issue to address CCWDs. We just notify them that there might be a concern.
Okay, Mr. Garcia, I feel compelled to step in here. There is a sequence of events that you're describing that I think no doubt you believe took place, but it did not. That this is a swimming pool. That the evidence or the applicant will be showing us in chronology here that everything was moving along normally, with quotes around it, normally, but he went through the location inspection and it got signed off. So they gun-nighted the pool. He came back for an electrical inspection, a subsequent wrestling about the bond beam, the adequacy of the engineering on the bond beam, and everything was moving along. I mean, they said, yeah, we can supply that, and it was supplied. The engineering for that was supplied. A swimming pool, as you probably know, or undoubtedly know, you cannot fill a swimming pool until you have a wall around it. I mean, that's a uniform building code requirement. So the error, as unbelievable as it may seem, the error on the location of the pool was found by yet a different inspector. Jeff White can verify this, and I hope that he will. The different inspector went out specifically to inspect for the purposes of approving the plaster. So the wall was up at that time. There's no subterfuge here or no. It's been sort of suggested that the wall was built hurriedly to avoid a permit or something. The wall had to be there in order to call for, and that's what I'd like to see, if you have the date upon which the request was submitted for the plastering permit or the plastering sign-off.
The date that the steel and forms for the pool, the pre-gunite inspection, was 8506. That was the only sign-off on our permit, was 8506 of the pre-gunite.
Okay.
On 4207, there was let me back up one moment here. There was a correction notice written regarding the bond beam, steel for the rock wall, which was a pool feature, and that was written on 8/16/06. So subsequently, the follow-up for that correction was taken care of with a submittal. Following that, there was a request for a deck inspection, which is concrete, probably some electrical and that sort of thing. A correction notice was written by Inspector Dan Pirtle on that particular day that said, I need to know where your front and side property lines for the look of pool again, and your fence over 6 feet tall is the verbiage of that particular correction.
My question, this is an important date. Surely you have in the record there the date upon which the client or the builder, the pool builder requested, I don't know what you call it.
Inspection request.
Yeah.
Would typically be the day before the inspector goes out.
But I'm not talking about the deck inspection. I'm talking about the request for the permission to plaster the pool. That's, as I understand it, that's when the problem occurred, or when it was identified.
Yeah, there was the engineering engineering raised bond beam, which we talked about, was a pool feature. And the requested correction notice was for the property line. and I believe that was prior to the plastering request, the request for the inspection for the plaster.
All right, you mentioned an inspector named Dan Pirtle. Who was the other inspector?
Yes, correct. He had at that time determined that he needed to know where the front and side property lines were.
Okay, was he the first inspector that went out?
No, Dan Pirtle was the second inspector. Randy Connolly was the first inspector.
Okay. All right, anybody have any questions of Jeff or Tom? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Would like to call Mr. Sarassi or whoever's going to make the counter arguments. Good morning, Tony.
Good morning. First of all, I have some pictures, if everyone would like to see them.
If you could pull the microphone a little closer and speak up loudly.
I have some pictures of the front of the wall that I'd like to submit to the board.
Thank you.
That's okay.
Please do. Give one to the clerk and also to county council and CAO. Thanks. Do you have like a sequence of events that you want to go over with us, or do you just want to answer questions?
I wasn't too sure how I was going to start this, but first I want to start with filling all the holes in the story that this gentleman has already stated to you. One of them is he showed you the correct lines. It says right-of-way and property line, and he stated that the county drew this up, which is incorrect. Mike So from Premier Pools drew this up because this is what the county requested. The second hole I want to fix in the story is they requested that I had CCWD come out, PG&E, and phone company to find out where everything is located. It's one of the steps that we did do. I believe you did see the spray paint was still out there from PG&E, phone company, and so on. So I've been approved from all three utility districts twice now. The first time when the pool got started, and the second time that they requested. When we first applied for the swimming pool, Inspector Randy came out and specifically asked me, did I know that I had to have some kind of fence line around the swimming pool? I said yes. I was going to be taking care of that. I told him that I wanted to build a stucco wall. He asked me what I was going to build it out of. I told him stucco. He said to me he wanted to know what it was going to be constructed out of. And I said, I was going to frame it up out of 2x4s, plywood it, and then stucco it. He says, okay, here's the rules. If you build a wall out of plywood and 2x4s and put stucco on it, it's still considered a fence. A decorative fence, but it's still considered a fence. If you build a wall out of cinder block, then you would have to go to the county for the permit, get it engineered, and I would have to come out and inspect it before you stucco it. I said, okay. He also told me that building a wall over 6 feet would also have to be engineered. I said, okay, no problem. He then did sign for the pre-gunite inspection with no problems. He came back out after pre-gunite was completed for the electrical inspection, and he approved that also. There was some confusion about the bond beam wall. He thought it was a retaining wall. The pool company had it stated clearly on there that it was a bond beam wall for waterfalls, which is like a sheer descent. It's 3 feet higher than a swimming pool, mainly for decoration. But he said that he had to, my pool company had to submit that back to the county. That was taken care of. We then applied for the pre-plaster inspection. I was not home when, I believe it was Dan, the inspector? Dan came out to the house. My wife was actually inside pregnant waiting because, you know, she wanted to meet up with him, make sure everything was okay. And I called her while I was at work. She said he never showed up. Then later on when she went to the store, she seen the yellow notice laying in the front yard, not in the packet. So I came home from work. I work in San Francisco. Came home from work, called the county, and spoke with Dan. First thing he complained about was there was no packet for him to put the paper, and that's why he had thrown it on the ground in the pool area. I told him the packet had been on the bench we had in front of the house this whole entire time, signing it and signing it. The first problem that he came to me with about the swimming pool was
the fence on the right side, which separates my neighbor's house and mine.
He had concerns of it being too close to the property line. He said there was a certain amount of feet, that you can't build a fence, blah, 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 easement, this and that. I said, okay, I want to comply with whatever you tell me. You know, I don't want to do anything against the law. You know, obviously I hired a pool company to do this. I didn't try to do it myself like other people have been doing. I didn't want to run into any problems. He said, okay. I said, tell me what I have to do before you come out so we can get this solved. He said, well, I want you to pull the lines between you and your neighbor's house, from the top of the property pin all the way to the bottom. I said, okay. He said, and while you're at it, you might as well pull the property pin in the front, just because you're going to be pulling it so I can see the property pins on your lot. I said, okay, no problem. He then responded with a sigh and said, and I quote, how are you going to do that? Are you going to drive stakes right in the center of the road? And I said, well, I don't think I understand what you're saying to me, Dan. He says, well, the property lines in Copperopolis start in the center of the road. I said, I'm not sure. I have property pins about 20 feet down. I assumed that that was where my property started. I'm a property owner. I don't know anything about county lines or anything of this sort. He says, well, I'll tell you what. You just pull the sideline. I'll come out there and we'll check it out. I said, okay. I work in the Bay Area. You know, when is the closest day you can give me that you can be close to my home? He says, I can be there tomorrow. I said, no problem. I said, do you want me to just run string? He said, yes. I went to the hardware store, bought some string. I ran the string line from the front of the property to the back of the property. And I waited, and I waited. And then Randy showed up. I said, how you doing, Dan? He said, no, I'm Randy. I said, oh, I'm sorry. I thought I had your name confused. That's who I spoke to on the phone was supposed to come out. He didn't want to. He said, because I've been inspecting this the whole time that I should come back out. I said, okay. He said, do you have your alarm on your door? I said, yes. Let me see your gate. I showed him my gate. It closed properly. He said he had some concerns about the wall. I said, yeah, he did. I told him that I built it out of 2x4s. I did not build it out of cinder block. So he wasn't that adamant about it after I told him what I had constructed the wall out of. He did say it was about an inch over in the front. On the side, it was a substantial amount over. In picture number 6, on the first page, that little bush right there, you can see the property stake. That's where I and Randy stood, and Randy looked at me and said, I don't know what Dan's problem is. You did build the fence on the other side of the stake, but you are within the line. I don't have any problem with it. I said, okay. He said, I'm going to go ahead and sign it off. I said, okay. He said, before I do it, I better call Dan, or am I saying that correctly, Dan? I better call Dan to see what else he wanted me to look for. I said, sarcastically, aren't you an inspector? You're supposed to know the laws just as well as he knows the laws. He said, no, I'm going to call him anyway. I said, okay. He called him, got off the phone, came back to me and said, okay, no problem, I'm going to sign it off, go ahead and plan for your pre-plaster. I said, okay. I then called Premier Pools. They scheduled a truck to come out to come plaster the pool. I then went back to work in the Bay Area. My wife calls me 2 days later and says she came home from the store and there's a red tag on my fence from Dan. He came back out after it was already approved and then red tagged it. I called Dan back up. I said, Dan, I pulled the side line. I did what you asked. Randy came out. He signed the paper. What's the problem now? He says, do you have the plan? I said, I can go outside and get it. He then opens up the plan, and he says, do you see the existing patio area? Does everyone see the existing patio area? Mm-hmm. He says, the swimming pool is too close to your house, Tony. I don't know how it got this far along, but the swimming pool is just way too close to the house. I said, well, how do you figure? He says, well, the existing patio is concrete, and you have a 4x4 post coming down your roof, which is sitting on the edge of that concrete, and that is considered part of your foundation for the whole house. I looked at it. I said, okay. I didn't go back outside. I just agreed. I said, well, I'm going to call my pool company and get this thing situated. He says, okay, you call me back. I said, all right. I called the pool company. Mike So from Premier Pools came out. This is a very rough draft on the existing patio area because the 4x4 post coming down from my house is actually like 3 feet in. There was actually a full walkway there. He measured it. He said, he's not correct. There's an substantial amount of room for this to be okay. I then called Dan again. I asked him if he could come out because, you know, this and that of the measurements in the front and the measurements on the side were A-okay, and I wanted to show him that. He then told me that it didn't matter because of the height of the pool being too tall, that I was going to have to take it down anyway.
The height of the wall?
Excuse me, the height of the wall, the stucco wall. And I basically wasn't going to get any further with him, so that's when I talked to Premier Pools and to my attorney, which I did not want to have to use an attorney. I did not want to have to go this route. I wanted to just have a swimming pool, basically. You know, this whole whirlwind of confusingness of everything is if you grab a plot plan or legend or map or whatever you want to call it of Arrowhead, Charmstone, Quail, which are all single lane roads, none of them justify what the length of the street is supposed to be. The only plot plan that Calaveras County has that shows the length of the street is Copper Cove Drive, which are two.
You're saying length of the street, you mean width?
Excuse me, width of the streets. As is being said, when I asked Dan and Randy, do I go from the edge of the road? Do I go from the center of the road? Neither one of them could give me a direct answer because neither one of them knew. Dan was the only one that said, I believe in Copperopolis, they go from the center of the road. He was the only one that gave me that answer. I then I'm friends with numerous real estate agents in the Copperopolis area, Aaron Stafford, Betsy Duncan, so on and so forth. Went to the real estate companies, pulled plot plans. Like I said, nothing justified how wide the road is supposed to be. I then called Calaveras County and spoke with a woman on the phone. I asked her if I could ask a few questions. She said yes. I asked her if I was supposed to go from the center of the road or to the outside of the road. She said she wasn't sure because in certain parts of Copperopolis, it is different. The only one that could give me a solid answer of where to pull lot lines from was Susan Larson. She's the only one that told me she's been dealing with this. She's dealt with this before, Tony. It's supposed to be 50 feet back from the center of the road back. So when the first inspector walked out, he should have seen your house is only 3 feet from 50 feet of the center of the road back and said, there's absolutely no way you can put a swimming pool here because, I mean, my garage door is literally three feet away from being 50 feet from the center back. I mean, this is no way could anyone else, except if they known, could tell the difference. So basically, this has been going on for 3 years now. I want to get it rectified. I've tried dealing with the county. People don't call you back. Everyone I talk to doesn't know the right answer. As you can see, this gentleman, I don't know if he's testifying or he's telling the board here, his side of the story, but I've already pointed out 6 points that aren't even correct. He doesn't even have the answer to. I'm willing to answer any questions he has for me if he can answer some of the questions that I was willing to give him. Do you know what the setback is supposed to be in Cop Roberts on a single lane road? Offhand.
Tony, that is not really relevant in this particular instance because we're dealing with elements that are clearly visible. There are property pins that like that little tab or the rebar with the tabs on it. This is a horrible situation, and I'm hoping we can get a resolution that's going to be acceptable to everybody. But does anybody else have any questions? Let me ask first of all, are you pretty much wrapped up with what you wanted to tell us? Okay. Any questions of Mr. Sarassi? Yes, Supervisor Toffanelli.
Can you tell me who built the wall? Who actually constructed it?
The fence, the stucco wall fence?
Yes.
Myself, I've had my father-in-law help me with certain parts of it.
How did you determine where you're going to put the wall up? Because I'm looking at a plan that was submitted to the county that specifically shows a fence line. And then it shows where the existing fence was built, which is not along the lines of the plans that were submitted.
When you look at the first plan that was submitted, it says 20-foot building setback. It's a straight line.
But it clearly shows a fence.
I understand it, but
and that's not where the fence was built. And that's why I'm asking, how did you determine where you just went out and said, this is where I'm going to put my fence up and start building it? Or?
No. What I'm trying to show you in this first picture is that it shows it being a straight line, which I assumed that the road was straight. When I built my fence, I pulled from the house. When you're standing in the courtyard, I wanted the wall to match the house as far as parallel. I didn't want to pull from the street because obviously the street in picture 4, you can clearly see it veers right towards my house and then veers away. I mean, these roads were cut in God knows what year with what backhoe or what, but they couldn't break the rock straight, so it zigzags towards my house 3 times actually. This picture number 4 is probably 50 yards from my house, and you can clearly see the first zigzag towards it.
Okay, Tony, you have indicated to me that you had some help from the county to that one of these inspectors, actually you had conversation with him about where the wall could go. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Randy, the first inspector, was the one that told me about the setback lines. I don't even want to quote what he said because he just told me as long as it was 20 feet back, I figured I had no problem. I'm right on the property line, as you can see in picture 6 with the stake. When he told me 20 feet back, I thought I was supposed to be 20 feet back from the center of the road. I mean, I thought I had more than enough room to put my wall up.
Supervisor Toffanelli, if you look closely at picture 6, there's a telephone company riser, and right alongside it, there's a piece of reinforcing steel with a metal tab welded on it.
Okay.
Okay. That is the northeast property corner of that property. Anyway, any other questions of Mr. Sarassi? I have a question. Is the pool builder here?
Yes.
Okay. Could you come up and identify yourself, please?
Good morning. Mike So with Premier Pools. I'm one of the job superintendents.
Okay. If anybody else wants to jump in here first. If not, Mr. So, this Premier Pool plan, I've got, looks like it might be the original here. It's got rainwater on it. This looks like it was drawn by Roger. Design drawn by Roger, and then the CAD drawing was done by JMS.
Right.
Salesperson was Roger. Can you give us a little background history about how a person goes from making a telephone call to your company to getting a pool built?
Well, first of all, the associates, the sales associates will get a call, a lead, and then from there, the representative or whoever salesperson has time or is involved with that area would go out and make a presentation. And from there, then we submit, the plans, the drawings get drawn out. The rough drawing goes to the CAD person. So the CAD person is basically going off of the original drawing that the salesperson had submitted to him. And so that's how we get this plan. Then we submit to county, and then the county basically gives us a yes or no. They also will tell us, hopefully, where we have restrictions. Because if the property owner doesn't know there's an easement, then a lot of times planning will also dictate to us that, okay, there's an easement here, we need to follow that, we need to stay outside those boundaries or apply for an encroachment at that point. And so at this time, unfortunately, and Roger no longer works for the company, he's out doing whatever he decided to do otherwise. And in the process of going along with the Sarassis, I noticed due to corrections, and the building department made notification of that. Unfortunately, I started doing some research and backgrounds on Roger Lynn's drawings, and at that time, that's when I noticed the mistake. I went down to your department, I believe, down to where the assessors or surveyors' offices, and picked up plans, whatever drawings I could. And there was not a plot plan necessarily, but there was property indicators. And on that plan, then I noticed, I took a scale and I said, okay, well, what are they using? Because if I was to go outside and look at the property, their driveway is concrete, goes right up to the side of the road, to the asphalt. And this is where I think where the mistake was made. In different counties, cities, everybody uses something a little bit different as far as what their markings are for property pins. In Calaveras County, a lot of places use flags. You put a metal stake in it, has corner flags, and saying this is where your properties are. In other places, they'll use a property pin, sink it into the ground, and by the time the house is built, nobody can find the property pins because they're buried under 3 feet of dirt. So in this regard, the salesperson, in my belief, I can't speak for him because all I can do is pretty much just estimate what might have happened. My guess is that he took the edge of the road as property because it looks like the concrete driveway is there. And a lot of times concrete driveways go right up to their property line and no further. And so at that point, he takes his drawing off of that. And looking at the plans from this gentleman's department, without actually getting down and doing your due diligence, which, no excuses. He should have done that. The line that if you take your your scale off indicates where this is not the actual road measurement that is out there. In other words, you've got a road there, and you have a road on the plan. If you take your scale, the road on the plan is drawn for a 2-lane road. But what is actually out there is a single-lane road. So he's going, this is a road. So I'm taking my measurement from this point, not thinking that it's actually should be measured for a 2-lane. And your easement goes from that point to the house. So when I took the measurement and I drew the plans out, sorry, but I do those, and found out there are houses on that street where his neighbor's, corner of his neighbor's, I guess, garage actually is in the easement. So that, even that part of the building, should have had an encroachment as far as for the builder. But anyway, he's right. The easement goes like about 3 feet from his garage, from Tony's garage. So at this point, that's where it started. And so now we're in this position. All I can do really is sincerely apologize for it to the Sarasis. They've been waiting an extremely long period of time. They need some resolution. We either need to fill it in or allow them to have a swimming pool. We'll do all we can as far as I know Premier would try to do as much as they can to allow this. Whether we have to sign a paper of no fault, I don't know if that's the correct term, but should anything happen to either at any time, whether it be Sarasis or if they sell the property somebody else, we will incur the cost of that. We'll absorb it ourselves to be able to, let's say you wanted to widen the road. To fill in, we'll take care of that cost.
When you say fill in, you mean remove the pool in its entirety?
Yes.
Okay.
But like I said, at this point in time, I would certainly love to have them have a pool at this point.
Okay, any other questions of Mr. Soul?
Quick question. Someplace in here I read that in staff's report that staff felt there was plenty of room behind the house to put the pool.
The problem there is, one, whether or not the homeowners wanted it there, but the other is the grade, the slope on the property. The slope on this property is severe. I think it's 3 to 1 or even greater. So that was not an option at that point.
Isn't there also the complication of a septic system being fairly close proximity to the back?
Right.
Okay. If it weren't for this bust in the dimensioning, this pool would be fine.
Right.
There is a unfortunate reality that the fence is over just a little bit farther than it should be. In even with this, the drawing, which is in error, it got scrunched over a little more than it should have. So anyway, if anybody has any further questions, if not, don't go away. We may have some more.
Fine, thank you. Again,
all right.
My apologies on behalf of the company. My apologies to the Sarasis. To you folks, we wouldn't have to be in this position. You guys have been helpful as far as trying to get all the information that we need. So again,
question. You drew this map. Did you pull from the center of the road or from the edge of the road?
Actually, I went from
The property line, I used the property lines because at that point in time, there was a survey done.
And matter of fact, the Sarasis requested us to get a surveyor out there, and they contacted somebody, and so the survey was done. So we were able to find the other property line. Because in the process of construction, not our construction, but in construction of the houses and things like that, the actual property pin for that other side of the house is gone. We have one, but we didn't have the other. And that was the one between the two houses. That would be what, if you're facing the house, it'd be on the left-hand side. That pin was, I didn't see that flag at all. And that's where the surveyor found it.
Yeah, it was, I think that I'm right that it was there. It was just it was below the surface of the ground. Having done a little bit of this work in a prior life. I used to have a little electric pin locator that,
Oh, like a metal detector?
yeah, could have solved a giant problem here.
But if you used a licensed surveyor to do it, licensed
No.
surveyors would be, would have known that. It happens all the time.
Yeah, well, initially, we build pools in backyards in most cases, and when we build a pool in the front yard, unfortunately, that wasn't done in this case, where we bring a surveyor in. Yeah, we thought maybe that we were taking it on the assumption, which is bad, that the salesperson knew where all of that.
Thank you.
Just one last question. Had you, or do you have knowledge whether the company has built pools specifically in the Copper Cove subdivision before?
Believe if Copper Cove would be entailing the other side of, what is that one road that goes towards where the, yeah, there's one behind you and then there's one on the other side of the road.
Okay,
Yeah.
so at least two in the subdivision.
Right.
Right. Okay. Have we checked those?
They're in backyards, actually.
Okay. If we decide to make this the first public pool in Calaveras County, would your company donate the pool chemicals and stuff?
Oh, I'm sure we can arrange something, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions of Mr. Sarasi or Mr. So? All right. Mr. Clapp.
I've always attended meetings here many, many times, and Tom Tryon's here one time, and Jeff Tuttle was county council. And up in Arnold, a gentleman wanted to build a garage, and he didn't have enough room, and he had to bring the garage 3 foot into the right-of-way. And you voted yes on it, and it was all, you guys weren't here then, that they let that, and they licensed the person. If the road ever gets wide, he has to remove the garage. And that garage is still there, I'm pretty sure. And Jeff might remember how it happened, because Tuttle was on it. But this county has allowed what they're asking to happen before. It was probably like 20, 22 years ago, or wherever Tom can remember.
Tom remembers clearly.
I can't say that I do.
All right. Anyone else wishing to comment on this? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and bring it back to the board for discussion and/or comments. All right. If nobody is...
I did have one question for anybody in the county staff that might be able to answer this, but it has struck me that this subdivision, along with a couple others in Copperopolis, have been laid out a little funny, and that there may be a number of these things that have been built in the right-of-way, the garage that was mentioned. Do we have any handle on this neighborhood and what happened?
I don't have any.
I'm not even going to get into Calypso Bay's sewer stuff.
Oh, yeah, that might be a country of its own, but typically this is a very unfortunate situation where I think the pool company, the owner, and the building department, and everybody involved try to exercise the best of their abilities to perform the functions that were required in the process and due process. Only when it becomes contentious does there seem to be a difference in opinion of what was said and who said it and when it was said. With whether or not that's pertinent at this point in the game, when we discovered there was a problem, it was our duty to immediately make that clear that there was a problem. We had to resolve that. We had favorable responses from the pool company on the issue. It was everybody's interest to get this right and not allow more problems to build on this. The issue that we have with property lines has been somewhat of a problem since I've been here, going on 24 years. It comes and it goes, and we usually do have this issue. Typically, in the past, the building department has responded to the best documents and best observations of the property owners, the contractors, and those who were responsible for the property lines during the process of inspections. They're not always accurate, and we usually don't have the knowledge of these things being inappropriate or incorrect until it's becomes to a stage similar to this. Some counties, I believe, require on certain acreages a survey to be done to whatever degree necessary prior to any project being installed. That might be something that we should consider as a county to avoid these kinds of things in the future, that if a certain acreage or under would require at least a survey location of the building or the property lines for a small price to pay up front when you compare it to where we are with something like this right now. This is one of those things that we should keep in mind at the conclusion of this, because I think it's important to the governing body of this county to take these responsibilities and apply them to an upfront process that would be more accountable for the builder, the homeowner, and the government to necessitate the awareness of where the property lines are, where all these things are, easements and so forth, so we don't have to deal with this anymore. That's for another day, but at this point in time, the number of these kinds of things happen to be case by case and with different types of issues that come up. They're all a little bit different. So to answer your question, Steve, I think there is occasionally those kinds of things that I've seen over the years that get handled usually differently. Hopefully we can catch them at the point before they get past something going vertical in the ground, so we can accommodate that issue and correct it before it gets too far along.
Okay, I have a follow-up question. Jeff, going back in your memory banks when you were out making area, I mean, you certainly must have seen and become familiar with the rebars. I mean, some of them, 90% of them are still in place, right?
That's correct. We've seen those in a number of different subdivisions, and who placed those there could be an interesting question, and how may have they been moved or not moved is obviously subject to some sort of scrutiny. But yes, you're absolutely correct. There are those types of landmarks out there that can guide you in a direction and think you're on the right track. Here we had clearly a document that was convincingly done and was very appropriately presented to us for accuracy. Unfortunately, it turned out not to be the case. So this is where we are with this. But finding the monuments is really the duty of the property owner to enlist in the services of a professional to show us where the property lines are, because what we're relying on is the information that we're given as well.
Okay. Any other questions of Jeff? Okay. All right. If I could take the liberty of explaining some the chronology when I first got involved in this. I got a telephone call from a realtor that was saying that a family up on Arrowhead was having some trouble with the county, that there had come to their attention that the pool perhaps was located in the wrong spot. So I live less than a quarter of a mile from here, so I drove up, and you can see that this is a one-way street. Looking at the photographs on page number 1, I'm sure that Mr. Sarasi parked those two vehicles there in front of the fence, not to demonstrate that he often parks that way. It's just to show that there is quite a distance between the edge of the road and the fence. But I approached from that, coming from that same direction that those vehicles are coming in. And, you know, if you look at the photograph in number 6, the riser, the telephone company riser that I alluded to before and that rusty-looking piece of metal, I could see from 300 feet away, from way beyond the adjacent lot, that this wall had been built what appeared to be a foot or two over the property line. And I don't know, it's not because that I have supervision or anything, it's just that you know, I've become familiar with that subdivision. I live there, and you become accustomed to seeing the property pins on each and every lot there. So it is mind-boggling to me that this project could have gone through a sequence of inspections, going back and forth about show us that you've got the proper design on this bond beam wall. The inspector was out there at least 3 times. You had another inspector show up for what essentially was the to get approval for plastering the pool, and he discovered the same thing that I discovered when I first drove up on the job, that there's something terribly wrong here. Okay, so I mean, everybody I think is fully acknowledging that the pool is in the wrong spot. So what do we do about it? If you look at the photograph in page or number 8, you can see a driveway descending. That's on the adjacent property. But if you look at roughly the midpoint of the driveway, there's a little black, what appears to be a black tab. That's another one of those rusty elements. And then beyond that, in the grass, there's another one sticking out there that demonstrates that you can see these property pins if you know what you're looking for. But the purpose of that picture particularly is to show that if this road ever got expanded, it would require at that particular spot, in order to have a roadway sufficient for a 2-lane road instead of a 1-lane road, there would be about by my estimation, about an 18-foot high retaining wall on that adjacent property to hold up the road profile at that particular spot, the road and its adjacent shoulder. So clearly, if the Public Works Department or the county was making a plan or proposal to widen that road, the wall and the pool would have to come out. I would submit to you that it will be there. The pool and the wall could stay there long beyond the time that I'm going to be on this earth. That before it would require removal because of the expansion of that road. The one-way streets have been functioning adequately in that subdivision since it was designed this way, and I think it was 1969. Gina, do you remember what the subdivision date was here?
That sounds about right.
Okay. I think I'm not going to go into the history of that, but the reason that there are one-way streets is because of the gradient on these properties. Their roads are running parallel with the ridge lines, and the lots are both below the contour line, or roughly the contour line that the roads are trying to maintain, and above. So they're upsloping lots and downsloping lots. So at this point, I would like to have County Council repeat for our document that would be required that could satisfy the county's future claim or future need for that property.
Well, we have a standard format that provides for indemnity if there's any accidents. The landowner is required to indemnify the county, and also agrees to remove the encroachment if at the county's request. It's actually described by the board packet in here.
What about other utilities?
Well, we have no control over that.
Well, Mr. Sarasi has indicated that the utilities have been located twice. There are no utilities in this area.
That's not what I'm saying. I mean, it could be at some point there's an undergrounding. At some point there could be a break in the line. At some point they need to relocate a line. So if he
Okay.
wants to cloud his title, it's fine with me. Because that's what he's going to be doing.
All right, Mr. Sarasi, you want to come back to the podium, please? The issue of putting a cloud on your title has come up, and do you understand the consequences of what that means?
Yes, I do.
And you're willing to do that?
Yes.
Any other questions?
Well, I don't like the precedent of doing this at all. You know, I don't like, it's been going on a long time, I understand that. And if I heard the gentleman from Premier Pools, they'd be willing to relocate the pool so it's beyond, it's within the property line. Did I understand that?
I think, Marita, what he said was they would be willing to just remove it and fill it in, and because there is no other location, and if they would have known what the property line was initially, they would have never built the pool. So I don't think it's a question of relocating the pool, it's doing away with the pool.
Right, and Russ, you said the wall is just a touch over, but when I look at the two drawings, it seems to be substantially beyond where it was on the original drawing. The original drawing shows it, I'm not sure how far from the edge of the pool, and the red line shows the wall substantially beyond
Granted,
that.
but on one end, it's more than the other, and that was due to the inexperience, I think, of Mr. Sarasi, who was pulling a parallel line off the front of his house whenever the property line is running from a point that is farther away from his garage, and it sort of comes in toward the property. I mean, nobody is particularly me, I'm not trying to build a case that the wall is built in a what ordinarily would be an acceptable position. And I feel compelled to remind the board that there was a similar situation over in the Rancho Calaveras subdivision, where a wall, not unlike this one, was made out of block, but it was literally, the columns and the block wall were right at the edge of pavement. I think it was before you were on the board, Gary, but Public Works had put a requirement that the wall be removed. And in that particular circumstance, I was adamant that the wall should be removed because it was a health and safety issue, that you could not walk in front of the columns and avoid being hit by a car coming along the pathway. These pictures would, I think, or be compelling evidence that there's ample room to park and walk in front of this wall and not be in the traveled lane. And if the road ever got expanded, then the pool would be gone. So
It could be for any reason, not just expansion. And
yeah.
anything that happens, you are responsible. You're holding the county harmless. I mean, that's a significant, to me, that's even more so than asking for the road to be wide. If there's anything there, you're paying, and not the county. And that really isn't responsibility. I don't think I would want, but, and
The only
I
thing
was-
is, to answer that, I mean, yes, I did pay the money out for the swimming pool, but that's what Mike So was saying from the pool company, that whether if I own the property or the next person or 5 people down the road, they're willing to sign a thing saying they will pay to
yeah,
have it.
but it could be 10 years from now, Premier Properties could be out of it. We're not,
Could be
we
out of
are
it.
not, the agreement would not be with Premier Properties. The agreement is with whoever owns this property.
I would point out that it's a long way between that statement here and a document that actually says
Well,
that.
I guess my feeling is I mean, it's a quagmire that we're in, but unless there's something filed, recorded, I can't support this. If, Jim, if we could come up with something, I had one up in Arnold. I mean, I just remember years ago, and it's recorded on their deed, so when he goes to sell his property, it's going to say that the new owner is responsible for anything that happens on that. So, I mean, what are you saying?
We've had this discussion before. This is something that would be required by law that they would have to disclose to a potential buyer. That's a duty imposed on the realtor and the property owner. It doesn't need to be in the title record, but it does depend on their following the requirement that all material information about the property has to be disclosed.
How do we get it so it's recorded?
I don't think it's a recordable document. You can't just record anything. It's something I can research, talk to Karen about.
Because, I mean, unless that's done, I can't support this.
Supervisor Walensky.
Given Supervisor Callaway's remarks, I'm wondering whether we have the option, I'm asking this council, to hold this hearing open while a document that might cover the concerns could be created, bringing it back for action here.
Whatever the board directs.
All right, but that's one option.
Well, all right. Can I just point out, Mr. Garcia mentioned this, but this is a little different situation. What the question isn't whether you do or don't grant the encroachment permit. Our county ordinance, and this is unusual, it requires that you make 3 findings.
Yes.
You read those. Substantially damaged, no other reasonable method, and no material detriment to the public interest, safety, and so forth. If you make those findings, then the granting of the permit becomes automatic. But those findings have to be specifically made. For example, if there's a motion, it would have to include that the board is making those 3 findings.
Jim, couldn't we say that the public's not damaged? The public is not damaged because there's a recorded document saying that the property owner is holding the public harmless for anything that happens along that property.
Well, that puts maybe too much into the recording. The recording just puts the buyer on notice.
Right.
It doesn't guarantee that the buyer checks the record of title. So.
But the title company does. Okay.
Well, that's their function, but
Supervisor Toffanelli had a question.
I do. I'm concerned about the wall. And I think, Tony, is that your name?
Yes.
I have some big concerns over the wall, and not only the placement of it, but the building of this wall. Certain sections in the pillars are over 6 feet. They require, let me finish, please. They require engineering in this county. When you build something over 6 feet, it's going to be a wall. I have no idea whether you put footings in there. Do you have drawings of what you did? We have no inspection on them. We don't know if 3 years from now they're going to fall over because there is no footing in it. The construction of them is wood, and then you put stone around them. Is that correct?
Correct.
So was there footings in place for these things?
Yes, there's actually a foundation around the whole entire.
Well, a foundation is one thing, and footings are something else.
Yes, each column had each column that I put in.
And what do you have to show me that you went down 2 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot?
Well, this is the terrible part. I actually took pictures of the whole entire thing, but it's been 3 years now. I had a laptop that collapsed on me, and and I had pictures of the 2x4s, I had pictures of me pouring the concrete, me putting the rebar and everything. But one of the things that the first inspector told me was, and the second inspector, was that you can build a column as tall as you want. It's a fence that requires a engineer.
All that becomes a fence then, if you're going to have separate columns.
I'm just going by what he told me.
Okay. Do you have a problem with making these things conform to 6 foot height?
I have, with the columns?
The whole thing, redoing the whole thing to make it all conform to 6 feet.
I mean, to be honest with you, I have $15,000 in this, and this is me building it myself with having no one charging me nothing. I have materials, concrete, and everything else. Would it be a huge expense? Yes, it would be a huge expense. But, you know, when I built the wall, my intent was just to build a stucco wall. When I went to buy the tops for the columns is when my wife had discovered these little toppers that go across that wall. It brings it 2 inches over with those with those wall tops. On the side of the wall, I do realize going down the side between my neighbor's property and mine that it does exceed the limit. I tried to make the wall as uniform as I could because everyone that told me about the wall being over 6 feet was more of a homeowners association as an eyesore than anything.
Well, I can't tell, what other people told you. If we build everything by what other people told us, I don't know if we have a structure that would
If I don't trust the county inspector, who do I trust? Just answer that.
What I'm asking you, can you prove to me that you have footing under these pillars that are over 6 feet?
Pictures, no. I mean, if you'd like me to dig them up, I could dig 2 feet under the ground and show you. That's what it took. It was me to rent a backhoe. You know,
Jeff, can that
my
be
father-in-law is a general contractor. I did everything up to code, and that's why I took pictures.
You're a general contractor?
No, excuse me, my father-in-law. I mean, I built this thing to code.
And your father-in-law was helping you build it?
He helped me do the concrete, and then he helped me build the 2x4 walls inside the stucco.
Jeff, can we do something like this?
My recommendation would be that because we do encounter these types of conditions occasionally, that we have an engineer review the wall, look at the wall, give us a written report that is up to whatever stress and strain and lateral forces that would be required to qualify the wall as it is. If it's to remain, I would recommend that we have a building permit, an as-built building permit with an engineering document that sustains the idea that it's going to stay where it's supposed to stay as long as it needs to stay there.
Mr. Chair, can I just suggest that this issue of the building permit isn't before you today? There's been no application and no denial of an application. The only thing that's here is the issue of the encroachment permit. If you grant the encroachment permit, there still would need to be a process of reapplying for the building permit that staff would have to handle.
That's correct, yes.
And in addition, as part of the building permit, we assumed that we would get a set of drawings which at least shows the utilities out there. What we have now is various inspectors saying that yes, that they looked at it in the field. I mean, we have no idea what's underground, whether or not where the wall is placed in relation to utilities. If there are utility easements out there, that's something that hasn't been addressed as well. Again, we just don't have a plan for that.
Mr. Chair, a couple comments.
Yes,
You want to
Supervisor Triumph.
For myself, subject to the approvals of Public Works and Building, I don't really have a problem in granting a encroachment permit for the wall. That's easy enough to move when and if the road is widened and it doesn't, in my opinion, present sort of great change in property values or change in costs. I do have a problem with the approval of the swim pool. Swim pools are considered an attractive nuisance, and if we're going to have part of an attractive nuisance out in the county right away that costs a lot of money, that will have a significant impact upon the appraisal value of the home, I think that's a matter of a different consideration. I think the fact that the pool company made an error in their initial drawing. The pool company,
by the gentleman's comments, if I understood them correctly, is willing to waive the cost of the pool and fill it back in and put it back to where it was. And to me, that's what should happen. It's hard to think that 10 years or 20 years from now that isn't going to cause a great deal of problems and consternation. I mean, will the pool company even still be here, number one? And number two, it will have a significant impact upon the value of the house, whether you have this pool or you do not have a pool, since there are no other alternative locations or viable locations for the pool. So for myself, I think the pool needs to be removed.
there was a mistake, that the pool company's willing to correct the mistake and as I understand it, leave the property owner whole. The fence, I don't think, is as big an issue. I think we can do an as-built inspection. The requirements for public works could be met, and if in the future we require the fence to be moved, it's not going to have a material effect upon the value of the property. It'll have some effect, but not a material, in my opinion, most likely not a material effect. So that would be my suggestion. That completes my comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other comments? Considering the gravity of this situation, yes, Brianne, please come. Please state your name.
Brianne Rossi. And I know that everything's pretty much been about the fence and not so much the pool, but the reason for the pool wasn't just for it to be beautiful. It's beautiful. I know you said it's a nuisance, but it's for my physical therapy. When we moved into our house, I was in a really bad car accident, and the reason we got the pool was for my physical therapy. It's been 3 years now. I'm obviously alive and okay without it, but it is for my back and my neck. I've had brain surgery and eye surgery, and I continue to have back and neck pain. But it wasn't put in for to be pretty. My husband made it beautiful, but it was more for a physical, for me.
Okay.
So just so you know that.
Okay, I mean, if that's the case, then probably what you're looking at is something like a lap pool as opposed to, you know, a splash pool for. Huh? Okay, but I mean, if the pool company's willing to leave you whole and correct the mistake, it seems to me now's the time to do it, because once you sell it, and particularly if it's not a recorded document, all anybody has to go by is the title report, and if you pick a real estate agent 10 years from now and it's not the one that's aware of this problem, I mean, the real estate agent has no knowledge of disclosure, because constructive notice is in the title report in recorded documents. So I think, you know, suppose you should pass on and it goes to your kids. Who's going to have any constructive notice of anything if you know, if it's not in the title report? And it just seems to me that if we have a mistake, we have a constructive nuisance, something that materially contributes to the value of the home, if we can fix the mistake now and leave you whole, now's the time to fix that mistake. I think the fencing is a separate issue. And, you know, quite frankly, I'm not in a big dither over an inch or two on a 6-foot fence. I remember we had a fencing issue in my district, and it wasn't anything like your fence. It was just a deer fence around a vineyard, which is over 6 foot. And my God, we went through hell getting the deer fence approved and all the issues surrounding that, because that is a fence, and we have deer fences all around. We have them in people's backyards for their gardens, for heaven's sakes. And we had an issue there, and we had an issue in the City of Angels, which has a like ordinance for a guy that built sort of a fence like yours. But you can go in the City of Angels and see all the gardens, and they all have, you know, deer fence around them, which is over 6 feet, and nobody seems to complain about a deer fence. So, you know, I mean, if this is a structure that would, if it fell over, would hurt somebody, and that sort of thing, then that's a little bit different. But, you know, for myself, I'm not, you know, I guess it doesn't rise to a high level to me that you're an inch or two over on this, but I think you need to meet the requirements of public works and building, as far as having an as-is inspection and having an engineer look at it, et cetera. And if you meet those requirements, then I would be willing to entertain an encroachment permit for that. So, my comments.
Mr. Sarasi?
I believe the public hearing has been closed.
I mean, you can be made whole now. My suggestion is grab it.
I would like to regain control of this meeting if you'll allow me to. Mr. So, I have a question. Okay, Supervisor Tryon is kind of paraphrasing what you said here about the company's position on this. Am I to understand with 100% certainty that Premier Pools would come out and remove this, everything that they've done, and give all of their money back?
I can't answer that particular part of, as far as all the money back. As far as filling in, that's something that I'm sure we can. But
So, wait a minute. What that means is that filling in, you would just leave the gunite in the ground and
no,
fill
I
it in with
mean,
dirt?
we would have to get the soil back to condition that basically it was before. We would have to extract whatever we can out of that ground and fill in. But as far as money's back, I don't have that particular authority to say we'll give money back. I mean, that's not my position. So, but
Okay.
as far as filling in and getting it back to the condition that it was, I can assure you that we would be doing that.
Okay, Mr. Sarasi, if you could answer one question, approximately how much money have you spent to date with Premier Pools? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments from supervisors? Okay, well, I would like to kind of weigh in with a little counter argument that Tom says that they can be made whole if we make the pool company take the pool out. And I think that the circumstances here, with this being in this particular subdivision, on this particular road, on a one-way street, the only thing that would ever precipitate the necessity of removing the wall and/or the pool would be the widening of the road. It's been a one-way street since 1968, I think. It was when the subdivision was approved here. Just wildest